meeting of the South Planning Committee today. We are not expecting a fire drill. In the event of the alarm sounding, please keep the building gathering. I'm obliged to inform you that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Could I ask you to please ensure that mobile phones are switched off? In order that those watching the live stream know who is speaking, could members and officers introduce themselves prior to speaking? To ensure the members of the committee and all points raised by the public speakers are properly heard, I must advise you I will not tolerate any disruptive behaviour. This is a meeting held in public and not a public meeting, and if such behaviour persists, I will adjourn the meeting. I should ask members to introduce themselves.
Councillor Andy Robinson, Loughborough North.
Councillor Colin Taylor, Alvin Cleverley, substituted Councillor Richard.
Christian Lee, Councillor for Bridge North East, Astley Abbots.
Councillor Caroline Bagnall for Broseley.
Tony Parsons, councillor for Basin Hill, Colin and Sutton.
Nigel Lumby, Councillor for Albrighton.
Nick Hickman, councillor for Ray Valley.
Ed Potter, councillor for Leighton.
Jacob Collett, Planning Officer.
Delivery Planning Officer. Louise Evans, Principal Planning Officer. Emma Green, Area Planning Officer.
David Evans, councillor for Chuckstead and Craven Arms, and also chair of this committee.
Charlotte Morrison, Planning Development Services Manager.
Tim Ward, Committee Officer.
Thank you. We have apologies for absence. We've got Richard Hopper, substituted by Colin Taylor, and we've got Robert Tyndall. Are we going to substitute?
Oh, Edward was coming, but I'm not sure.
Edward Towers was coming. Okay. To confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of February. So a proposal for the minutes, please. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Public questions?
No public questions, Chair.
Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Members are reminded that they must declare the disclosure of pecuniary interest and other registrable and non-registrable interest in a matter being considered at the meeting as set out in Appendix B of Members' Code of Conduct. They should leave the room prior to the item being considered. Further advice can be obtained from the Policy Office there. Thank you. Item 5, proposal of the residential development plan of Kingswood Road, Albrighton. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just, sorry, I must have been half asleep because I never mentioned that I'm going to be speaking on item 5 and then withdraw.
Good looking. Okay, thank you.
Yes, the application seeks outline approval for the erection of up to 150 dwellings with associated infrastructure. So next slide, please. The principal means of access is from Kingswood Road, has been secured within this application, but other matters remain reserved for future consideration. With regards to the access, the scheme proposes the provision of a right-hand gauge lane on Kingswood Road into the development site, along with the relocation of the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. So here we have the location plan. Next slide, please. So here we have the lovely Albrighton. The site is located adjacent to the eastern edge of the settlement, denoted by the yellow star in that image. Next slide, please. The site comprises of an agricultural field. Kingswood Road and Beamish Lane form the southern boundary with the application site, and a railway line which links Telford and Birmingham is to the north. Located along the western boundary of the site, you can see the existing proposed residential development known as Millfields. Main features of the site are the established landscape, which includes a row of mature trees to the southwest fronting Kingswood Road. Established trees close to the railway line, mature hedges along the boundaries, and 2 water bodies. The first is to the western boundary and the second is to the north of the site. Next slide, please. Here we have a framework plan which indicatively denotes the potential location of various sub-features and open space, as well as potential linkages with adjacent development. Members may note that officers have recommended the use of conditions to set parameters for future development rather than relying on this plan. So it's not a pre-plan, but as I said, it does give you an indication of what could come forward. Next slide, please. So here we have the proposed access arrangement. The scheme details the provision of a right turn ghost lane on Kingswood Road to serve the proposal as submitted within the application now ensures the retention of the significant trees at the entrance to the site. As you may note from the committee report, the trees as a grouping and feature are of very high amenity value. The alignment of the proposed access will also ensure the protected oak tree within the site can be safeguarded from adverse effects from development. The latest access placement, which maintains the existing carriageway width, would only require a white line marking refresh. A village gateway feature is also proposed, located approximately 155 metres to the south-east of the proposed access site location, which includes moving a 13-mile-an-hour speed restriction and the use of Dragon's Teeth markings to reinforce the entry points to the village. It's suggested within the transport assessment that the proposed road marking will create an impression of road narrowing, promoting decreased traffic speeds and serve as a reminder to drivers that they are entering a populated area. Next slide, please. So next we have a few street view images. This one is located on Kingswood Road. The site is located to the right of the image. And you can see just to the right of the image are that important row of trees on the edge of the site. Next slide, please. This is also taken along Kingswood Road, but from the opposite direction. So here you can see the existing entrance into the Millfields development, and the proposed access will be located further down the road, and the site is just to the left. Next slide, please. This is just eight members debating sort of further down the line. But yeah, this final image is taken from Beamish Lane at its junction with the A41. And this is recognised as a particularly dangerous junction. With regard to the use of Beamish Lane, the transport assessment submitted in support of the application has concluded that there will be negligible increase in the use of Beamish Lane as a result of the proposed development. This is not a view shared by the local community, so the local highway authority has suggested a planning condition to deal with the submission of further details of measures to deter use of the road, together with a financial contribution to deal with a traffic regulation order to alter the status of the existing road. So, but subject to the use of these, the scheme could be made acceptable. So hopefully those images have given you an impression of the context of the site, but now for the planning element. So Albrighton is identified as a key centre within the adopted development plan. The application site is located outside of the development boundary for Albrighton on land which is safeguarded by the Southern Policy +1 to be available for possible future use to meet the settlement's long-term development needs. As such, the proposal does not accord with the policies of the development plan. However, the plan does recognise that the site is intended for housing development within future development plans. The council cannot currently demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, and paragraph 11D of the NPPF is engaged. This is also known as the tilted balance. That being the case, the principal development on this site is acceptable, providing the scheme can also secure good design and affordable homes. In this instance, a 20% provision of affordable housing is proposed, which is 5% more than the current adopted policy, and this too should carry significant weight in decision making. The main sticking point with the application has been the proposed access being a right turn ghost lane rather than a roundabout, as was anticipated by the community. Officers accept that the proposed access arrangement does not meet that community expectation, but it is an acceptable and safe alternative. Officers cannot find any reasonable grounds to withhold permission on this basis or to give it any weight in the overall planning balance. Therefore, giving significant weight to the lack of a 5-year housing land supply and the over-provision of affordable housing, the application is strongly recommended for approval, with delegation to officers to confirm the wording and to secure condition wording, and to secure a Section 106 agreement to address affordable housing, long-term management of open space, contributions towards passenger transport, a traffic regulation order for restricted access to Beamish Lane, a travel plan monitoring, and cost recovery of a 30-year monitoring period for biodiversity net gain, and cost recovery for the monitoring of the Section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, a few speakers on this. I call on Councillor Nigel Lumby, please. And you have 5 minutes to address the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this development was in the draft local plan, but not in the current SANDEV. We've been asked recently to approve a similar one in Ditton Priors, but that was in the then draft local plan. This one in a withdrawn plan. However, you'll be pleased to know that I am not objecting in relation to that. Albrighton did not contest the draft local plan at consultation stage. In fact, the cumulative increase 2020 to 2038 will be 750 additional homes in Albrighton. No NIMBYs us. However, and I've just got to get this in, we don't want the additional unplanned 800 homes that an application has been put in for the south of the village. You can read my comment in the officer report and that of Albrighton Parish Council, and I thank the officers for including them in full. You will note that there is no representative from Albrighton Parish Council here, but don't read anything negative into that. I'm the chair of their planning committee, so rest assured their views are represented by me. And no, I'm not asking for an additional 3 minutes. When asked if I wanted to speak for or against, I put against-ish. I'm not against 150 homes and have no issues with the outline. I am well pleased that the Beamish Lane issue is to be resolved. I'm also pleased that Shropshire Council planners have agreed that there will be connectivity between Phase 4 Millfields and this application. It was in SANDEV, but there has been conflicting emphasis on the two developers' indicative plans. I'm speaking because of the unsatisfactory main access into Kingswood Road. The residents of Albrighton want a roundabout. It's in SANDEV that there will be one to the access of the village to slow traffic down. The developers of Millfields were able to convince planners a ghost right turn lane was enough, as this applicant is also trying to do. It's been a disaster. The road was widened and spatially it just encourages motorists to go faster. The local police are regularly there with enforcement activity to slow the traffic down. The issue is in the top 3 in my inbox and on Facebook. I went on the site visit and we entered the village, or rather we came round and went into Crossroads. Members saw that the 3 mini roundabouts designed and installed to slow traffic down some 10 to 15 years ago. And there is another mini roundabout on the high street. The residents of Albrighton are well used to these and they are effective. They are deliberately offset, forcing traffic to slow to negotiate them and be wary that traffic from the right has priority. This would work on this site. Albrighton's minis were installed as traffic calming and work. Please ask the applicant's agent if they would accept a mini roundabout. I've read the officer's report and it's obvious that highways are not overly happy with the option offered by the application at present. I accept we don't want big trees cut down for a roundabout if we can help it. I'm mindful of the bend and maybe 20 mile an hour then might be more realistic if you extended the 30 a little bit further and it wouldn't cost any more. You have the option of rejecting this application on the grounds of safety, and if you feel the applicant is unwilling to move from a T-junction, because that's what it is, you may have to consider it. I get the recommendation for officers that it be accepted subject to a satisfactory outcome for the road junction, but we're here because an impasse has been reached and just appear to be kicking the can down the road. But members need to show the applicant it needs resolving. And I would strongly encourage you to consider requiring as a minimum that there is a mini roundabout at the access to the development. This will not have an impact on trees, is relatively cheap and achievable for the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lumby. Any questions, please? No? Okay. We've got Nicholas Mills. The agent.
No, I'm from Wayne Estates, we're the applicants.
Right, okay. Right, you'll take this to Justice Committee, please.
Good afternoon, members. The application before you will provide much needed family homes on a site that is a draft allocation in the submitted local plan. A report to Cabinet in February identified a housing land supply of only 4.73 years, which included the delivery of this site. At that Cabinet meeting, Cabinet resolved to support planning applications on sites proposed to be allocated in the submitted local plan, such as this. Members will also be aware that Hull Brighton is identified as a key centre where development should be focused. None of the formal consultees have objected to the application, and the conditions proposed align with their recommendations. As set out in the committee report, your case officer and statutory consultees, including Highways, Lead Local Water Authority, Environmental Protection, have confirmed that all technical matters have been addressed or can be addressed by the use of standard conditions. The Highways officers confirmed that the principle of the site being accessed by a Ghost Island junction is acceptable and is not considered a high reason for highway refusal. The proposed access has been welcomed by the tree officer. It also addresses the comments raised by the design review panel regarding the retention of the high quality beech trees along the site frontage and the TPO tree within the site. To contribute to highway safety, a gateway feature is proposed approximately 155 metres to the southeast. This includes moving the 30-mile-per-hour speed restriction and the use of road markings to create the impression of road narrowing. This will promote decreased traffic speeds. Measures to deter access to Beamish Lane will be subject by condition and funded by the developer through a traffic regulation. The provision of vehicle, cycle and pedestrian connections to the Millfield scheme to the west and to the remainder of the allocation to the east will be secured by planning condition. Beyond that, these proposals will generate a number of real benefits for the people of Old Brighton, including up to 150 new homes at a time of a local and national housing crisis, 20% affordable housing, which is higher than the current adopted policy requirements and should be given significant weight in the planning balance. Economic benefits, including jobs during the construction phase and increased household spending in the local area during the lifetime of the developments. The provision of new public open space, which can serve both new and existing residents, and a 10% net gain in biodiversity. In addition, contributions of circa 1 million towards education, healthcare, and public transport will be secured by SIL and Section 106 payments. The proposed development is an opportunity to deliver family homes and address the identified housing supply shortfall in a sustainable way. The benefits of the scheme will significantly outweigh the impacts. We therefore respectfully ask that the application is approved in accordance with your officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, please? Councillor Wellington.
Given what Councillor Lumley said, would you consider installing a mini roundabout?
So we've looked at We've looked at the mini roundabout option. Our highways consultant looked at it. When we had the design panel review meeting, the design panel were very concerned about the retention of the trees at the front of the sites. Now, when we looked at the roundabout option, we discovered that that required the removal of some of those trees. So we've gone with the priority junction instead. That has been basically signed off by our highways consultant, and it's been signed off by the council's highway officer as well.
Thank you. Any other questions, please? No? Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you. Right. Councillor Parsons?
Yeah, we went and looked at this site this morning. I don't think there's any real reason why the area can't be developed for housing. The issue is, I think, only with regards to the access and egress from the site. And I hear what's been said so far. I don't know whether there are other measures that could help in this instance, because for those who haven't been there, you're coming out of a 60-mile-an-hour zone on a bend into a 30 miles an hour zone, and very shortly after that is the turn into this particular area for development. So I wondered whether, it could be considered maybe speed hump, level cross, zebra crossing or whatever to also assist in stopping the traffic or reducing the speed of the traffic if the mini roundabout idea isn't to go forward.
Thank you. Councillor, go on.
I'm just going to add to that, obviously condition 18, which is obviously at the end of your report, does talk about details of that coming in. So as in, I'll just read it to you for your benefit. Prior to commencement development, hereby committed full engineering details of proposed improvements and traffic calming measures on Kingswood Road as shown on drawing that was previously shown, shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority, and they shall be implemented in accordance with the approved details prior to the occupation of the first dwelling. So as in, it does allow when that access is fully detailed up and goes through that section 278 process to be acceptable. Those conditions ensure that the planning consent agrees with that, and it does allow for that scope for even additional to what is shown, should it be necessary from the road safety audits when they are conducted.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was very useful to go on the site visit this morning. There's no doubt Albrighton is a key centre, as we saw on the visit this morning. Lots of facilities there. Obviously, some of them will need increasing, like surgeries and pharmacies, but I think it's the right place for development of this scale. There were some really nice mature beech trees on the boundary, and generally there's some really nice large trees in the area, especially on the nursing home, I think it is, which is on the opposite side of the road. And these trees need keeping because when you look at the site itself, there are no mature trees apart from that one oak tree with TPOs. So I think it needs the mature trees keeping as much as possible. I do understand the desire for a mini roundabout by local residents, but I don't think there's enough room as it stands for an offset one. In fact, it was mentioned that perhaps trees would need removing if you're going to fit something there. I certainly am not in favour of a straight, as I call it, mini roundabout, because I've got one in my village which was put by a new housing estate, and the fact does not slow down at all, just speeds straight across it. I even witnessed a car overtaking somebody on the mini roundabout 2 or 3 weeks back, which completely defeats the object of mini roundabouts. And in some ways, I'm getting reports that mini roundabout is dangerous with lots of near misses. So I'm not in favour of a mini roundabout. Unless it can be proven to help. I do think road markings are going to be really essential to make sure that this entrance to the site is a safe one. But I would be happy to approve this application with delegation to officers to secure the correct road improvements with markings. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Potter, please.
I agree with much of what this earlier speakers have said. I think this is a site ready for development. We know the situation we find ourselves in with 5-year land supply and the emerging local plan. There's no more. And I think I would, you really have to take the officer's advice when they say that there is no planning weight can be added to the roundabout situations. We have to judge the application on what's before us, so I'll be minded to vote in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Lee, please.
Yes, I have to say I full-heartedly concur with Councillor Parsons' comments. I do think it's essential that the appropriate highways speed reduction issues are taken into account, and I'd perhaps like to see like a raised pushing to slow the traffic down to make sure that highway safety is as good as possible.
Thank you. Another member wish to speak, please? Councillor Towers, please.
Yes, just reassurance, really, please. I concur with what you just said, Councillor Parsons, and also Councillor Lundy. These speed restrictions seem to be very important here. Can I just ask the committee officer, planning officer, does section 18 reassure that there will, even after if things are found to be wrong, having put them in place, there will be other mitigations put in place to actually reduce the speed? I mean, road markings is one thing that's been mentioned, but all that is before the event, before the development. And what I'm concerned is if it should be proven that's not sufficient, the restrictions? Are there some more that can be put in place later?
Yeah, so you refer to condition 18, yeah. So condition 18 was is the condition attached to the planning consent. But yeah, in terms of the which have just detailed what those are intended to be. But going through a section 278 process, which is works within an existing highway, which is Kingswood Road, it will go through like a stage 1 and 2 safety audit, and then there's stages 3 and 4 that come with that as well. So stage 1 and 2 are looking at a designer's response. So as in they look at the situation, if there's anything sort of slightly off there, it's what they're proposing to do to mitigate that, and then that gets completed. Stages 3 and 4 are post completion; they still have to go back. Right. And yeah, but that comes through the section 278 rather than through the planning consent, if you see what I mean. So, but yeah, as I said, obviously at that point, under section 278, it's the highway authority that will ensure the developer undertakes those mitigating work later down the line, rather than the planning authority. But yes, it's still property council will ensure that we'll need to go through all of those sufficient audits to make sure that it's acceptable.
Thank you. Right, we have a proposal, please. Councillor Potter? Yeah, let's go to officer's recommendation with the condition of the island issue to be put into place. Okay, all right, right.
Okay.
So to take the vote, please.
On that basis, if you can indicate if you're voting for or against the Caroline Bagnall. For. Andy Robinson. For. Nick Picnic.
For.
Christian Lee.
For.
Tony Parsons.
For.
Ed Potter.
For.
Colin Taylor.
For.
Ed Towers.
For.
And David.
Four.
Okay, thank you.
Unanimous, carried. Thank you very much. Right, we can now go to the biodigester station, Skoda Road in Ludlow.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Chair. This application is application by Shropshire Council. It's proposed pyrolysis plant Coe Road in Ludlow. There's the site there in the red. Obviously, Coe Road, which then connects to Purham Road, and then down towards connects to the A449. The application is for a pyrolysis plant. It's intended to improve Shropshire waste operating and service. Pyrolysis, briefly, from my brief kind of technical overview, is decomposition of that oxygen. It's not incineration. That's the key kind of fundamental. It's not incineration. It's decomposition of that oxygen, which makes biochar from green waste, wood, Shropshire's green waste, which is then used in. I don't know specifically what it's then used for, but it's used for other things. The releasing to that committee today is because it's Shropshire Council's own application. Ludlow Council, Town Council have objected to the scheme. We've had 2 late representations as well, which is been online. The recommendation for myself is for approval. Go to the next slide, please. The existing use of the site is a anaerobic biodigester. So it has an existing waste use, sui generis in planning terms, with an existing waste use, and there's no change in the policy position in supporting a waste use at the site in national or local policy. So it's still considered to be suitable for waste processing. The important thing to consider for this application is, because of its waste policy, it's also subject to an environmental permit. And planning practice guidance is very clear that when deciding a planning application for a waste scheme, we should not focus on managing or controlling pollution impacts. That is done through the environmental permit, and to kind of discourage the over-regulation through two different processes. So the principal material considerations are outlined in the report. There's quite a number of them. Next slide, please. So the first one is the scale and designs. This is the proposed layout. Principally, it's using the same building that's existing on site with a moderate extension to the rear. The removal of one of the existing anaerobic digesters, silos, and the retention of the two, plus some hard standing and tipping walls. The other material considerations, of course, are noise, potential noise, chipping process to produce the materials for the process, lighting, vibration, dust, odour, air quality. Those are all being considered by our environmental protection officers. They have no objection to the scheme. They're also subsequently considered as part of the permitting process as well. The air quality impacts in particular, I think it's important to note that they are under the environmental quality standards for the permitting application that would be submitted, and actually represent a worst case scenario. And there's not considered to be any harm to any human or ecological receptors nearby. So this is the existing elevations of the buildings. You can see if you go to the next slide. And this is the proposed. So you've got the silos, and then you've got the extension with the two roller shutter doors to the rear of the site. So visually, from the when looking at the building from the front from Coder Road, you'll have one silo no longer appearing. There should be a photo on the next slide showing the currents of the silo on the left there. You won't see because that will no longer be there above the building. There'll be addition of a couple of chimneys above the elevation line, but in that respect, there is absolutely no change at all. And if we go to the next slide as well, there's some wider photos of the site. As you can see, that's from different elevations. So the bottom right is the silo that's proposed to be removed. The final thing I should just mention is highways is the material consideration that's been most mentioned in the objection comments. Because of the existing use of biodigester site and waste site, it already has about 7 to 10 HGV movements per day. The proposed use is similar, about 4 to 10. So there's no significant change in vehicle movements as a result of the proposed development, and it's coming out of waste site very quickly onto the A49. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. Right, we're going to speaking against it, the Ludlow Town Council, Mr. Stuart Waite. The Minister address the committee, please.
Good afternoon. Councillor Stuart Waite, representing Ludlow Town Council and the residents of Ludlow. Thank you, Chair, for giving me the opportunity to speak on this matter this afternoon and to explain why Ludlow Town Council and the people of Ludlow do not support this application. The biochar project has two primary aims. One is to generate income, and the other is to help Shropshire Council meet its climate change and net zero targets. I'll start by saying that the scheme does have some merits. The process takes low-grade biomass feedstock and converts it into heat, electricity, biochar and carbon offset credits, all of which can be sold. So I must congratulate the team on achieving the unachievable by finding the holy grail. They appear to have not only found the perpetually elusive money tree, but have also become alchemists able to turn wood into gold. However, in reality, as we all know, as with everything in life, you can't get something for nothing. The business model for the scheme suggests that there will be insufficient feedstock available locally, so this will need not only to be purchased, but transported from outside the county. This model of paying to burn trees and then selling carbon offsets may be likened to toxic money laundering, salving the conscience of tech giants and others around the world who continue to pollute the atmosphere, but doing very little to help the council meet its climate change targets. The primary output of the proposed biochar plant is biochar, which is the name. Research informs us that the jury is still firmly out of the stated benefits of biochar used in agriculture as a soil improver. I've spoken with farmers, members of the Allotments Association, and representatives from the NFU on the topic. The majority view seems to be that biochar can have limited benefits when used as a mulch, say in a tree nursery, where it locks in moisture and prevents weed growth. It also helps retain heat in the growing medium, helping rapid plant growth. However, there is a second school of thought that suggests if it's used incorrectly, it could not only absorb moisture, but also nutrients from the surroundings, causing stress to invertebrates and the general health of the biome. Ludlow's largest concern, however, is the proposed location of the plant next to a housing estate and the potential for harm from air pollution. I must say that as an engineer, I was very impressed with the thoroughness, attention to detail, and the methodology of the computational fluid dynamics model used. Looking at particulate and gaseous emissions from the exhaust flue. This excellent, albeit depth-based analysis reveals several potential worrying facts concerning the level of oxides of carbon, nitrogen and sulfur in the exhaust plume, as a result of complex hydrocarbon combustion. These compounds can be responsible for acid rain and may potentially affect the health of the rivers and the three sites of special scientific interest close by.
Read the time thing.
Okay.
Any questions for please? Okay, thank you very much. No questions?
No question.
No, the time's up. Okay. Okay, can you go back to the public camera? And then we'll follow the next speaker.
Okay.
Mr. Tony Higgins, please. I understand you're the agent.
I am.
And you have 3 minutes to address the committee. Thank you.
Is on immediately, or I've got to do something? Right hand, but okay. Hi, I'm Tony Higgins, and I'm the applicant. I might be able to help the councillor who's just spoken because I can try and clarify some of these issues. Firstly, thank you, Chair, for noting that this is not an incineration process. And because it's not an incineration process, it's a gasification process, and the only thing combusted will be the gaseous materials volatilised from the wood waste that we are looking to pyrolyse. And that in itself should give some comfort because it means that we're not fully combusting the material. And the real truth of that is the fact that we're getting tons of biochar out, and biochar is essentially carbon. So that should help reassure people that the carbon that would have been released through a combustion process is not. It's actually being released into a usable product that we can then sell. So that's the first thing. The second thing I think that was mentioned by the councillor was that there was some concern over not having enough material. We actually have loads of material. We've got a number of sources of material, both from within the Shropshire estate itself. So the schools, the parks, and the other materials that generate low-grade biomass that we need to dispose of, and which is currently just being either left on the ground in order to rot, in which case it releases its carbon dioxide immediately, or we have materials that we bring in from arboricultural engineers and the like, who will be providing us with a high-quality biomaterial to process. The point is that even if we don't get those materials, we have sourced other arrangements. We've got organisations such as Jenkinson's and Ransford's, which are local companies, who will supply us with the right material to pyrolyse in the event that we need it. And it's hoped that certainly after we finish commissioning, we will be producing our own material from the Shropshire estate. In respect of the wastes that are being provided, then the arboricultural arisings that we will generate from our other estates will be the significant ones. To deal with the air quality, which seemed to be the other aspect of concern, I can assure you that the models that were produced were based on the maximum possible emissions required by the permit application. So the permit, when it gets put in place, will restrict the company and its air emissions to particular levels. The maximum levels permitted were used in the modelling, and because they're the maximum levels permitted, we've already proved that there's a negligible impact from that. In actuality, the emissions are going to be much, much lower than that. And in terms of the carbon emissions, because of the biochar that's been produced, those are going to be significantly lower than a comparable incineration process. The last thing that I would mention is that clearly we will be selling carbon credits, and we will be generating a revenue from that. So yes, there is a bit of a money tree here, but it's based on the materials that we're processing. And if there are any other questions, I'm happy to help.
Thank you. Any questions, please? Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Right, Councillor Boddington, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was somewhat surprised by Councillor Waite's comment that the people of Ludlow don't support this. In fact, opinion is split. There's a lot of support, a lot of Green support. A lot of my neighbours support it, and we live very close to it. And some don't. And with any planning application, that's the case really. But let me go through some of the issues that have been raised. So, on emissions, Town Council's written objections suggest that the sulphur dioxide will smell at the levels that it's at. Well, as we heard, these are the maximum likely concentrations of emissions. On Curry's Road, the nearby road, the prediction is it will be 20 micrograms per cubic metre of sulphur dioxide at a maximum. The human nose cannot smell sulphur dioxide below 300 micrograms per cubic metre. So I don't think there's any chance of smells. There are other emissions, and I've gone through the entire report. I won't bore you with the chromium and nitrogen, etc. But we have to remember this is right beside the A49, which is elevated above the plant. And the stuff coming out of tyres, out of brake pads and out of exhaust will be a lot more than will ever come out of this. So I don't think emissions are a problem. Turning to source material, we have enough in this county. Ludlow is on the edge of a massive forest. We have a huge amount of waste wood, which is the source material that we want. And every year, at the end of the year, the timber is cropped, and there's a vast amount of waste wood which we can use. So I don't think it's a problem. It's coming from Herefordshire, but that's right next door to Ludlow. I don't think that really matters. Turning then to traffic, another of the Town Council's objections, the actual predicted traffic levels are very low. Now, we don't have a traffic count on Paris Road, but I walked back from pub 1:30 yesterday. That's one of the quietest periods during the day. And I counted 28 cars and vans in under 5 minutes. So that gives an indication of how busy it is. And the road is quite packed during rush hour, and it's quite difficult to cross it. And it takes 44-ton trucks. So I don't think the traffic for this are going to make any significant difference whatsoever. It's also in an industrial estate, an industrial business park. It's right next door to processing units for steel, hydraulics plant. There's a car workshop. There's a car a plant hire depot there, and just down the road there's plastics moulding. That's what goes on in this area. It's in keeping with what happens in this area. And the houses are sufficiently far away not to hear any noise. There'll be a hum overnight, but not to hear any noise because it's against the A49. And you can hear I live, quarter of a mile away, maybe a bit more actually. So I hear the A49 all the time. It's just a constant background hum, and you get used to it basically. So I don't really see the problem with this. I see the advantages. It doesn't create many jobs, just a few. Okay, but when the biodigester was built, which is going back 20 years ago, long time ago, it was a phenomenon. I even came across, I was in Oxfordshire at the time, I even came across to visit it from Oxfordshire, being an interview for Radio Oxford. It was a great phenomenon. And what it did was kickstart a biotech industry around Ludlow. and we had around 120 people employed at its peak in biodigestion. And we still have companies like March's Biogas based in Ludlow. Now, this could do the same for pyrolysis. It's got a visitor centre, and that's quite important for showing off what's there and explaining what's there. And I think this is actually very good for Ludlow, and I think it's very good for our green economy. I won't go into Councillor Wade's arguments about toxic money laundering, that they're not credible. Carbon credits is an established way of dealing with the carbon issues that we face today. So I am fully in support of this.
Thank you, Councillor Bonington. Anybody else to speak, please? Councillor Parsons, please.
Yeah, I looked through the report, and in particular, paragraph 412 from Regulatory Services, which looked at issues that had been raised as being of possible concern with regards to this potential development, but seemed to be saying there that certainly air quality and odour would not be a significant issue here, and that even when looking at the noise issue, that because of the work that's already taken place since the initial report was done, that noise would not also be a particular issue with regards to this. We've heard about the traffic side of things as well, where it's unlikely that there'll be a significant increase in the number of HGVs or whatever visiting the site, and so I'm prepared to support this application.
Thank you. Councillor, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just quick statement, really. I mean, I understand the comments have been made already. I think based on the existing industrial use of that general area, which has been explained to us, I think a biochar production facility would be quite acceptable on this site, particularly as at the moment it's unused, so it would be using a building without necessarily flattening the site and starting from scratch. So I support it.
Okay. Any other speakers, please? Anybody want to make a proposal? Councillor Bonington?
Proposed.
I'm happy to second it from the chair. I'll ask him to take the vote. Okay.
Okay, so we've got moved and seconded to accept the officer recommendation.
Yeah.
To grant permission subject to the conditions set out in Appendix 1
Correct.
with a delegation to officers to revise condition wording if necessary.
Yeah, that's great.
If you can
Thank you.
indicate whether you're voting for or against, please, Caroline Bagnall. For. Sandy Boddington.
For.
Nick Hicknett.
For.
Christian Lee.
For.
Nigel Lumby.
For.
Tony Parsons.
For.
Ed Potter.
For.
Colin Taylor.
For.
Ed Parrott.
For.
David Evans.
For.
Okay, that's unanimous.
That's carried as unanimous.
Oh,
Thank you very much. Right, we'll invite Kevin, his local dwelling back down to Pullman back.
Thank you very much. Would you want to visit any time?
Don't need to do the report, please. Thank you very much.
If you want to have a discussion about sonorisation, because honestly, can't blame them. Thank you.
Yes, this is a proposed direction of local needs in the context section site. Slide, please. Next slide, please. This is the site area, the red line, the proposed wetlands within the red line, the wider area includes 2 building business use. And you can see the access roads and the proposed means of access into the site. Next slide, please. And the block plan there shows the position of the dwelling, parking and turning area, and the use of the existing access off the highway. Next slide, please. And the elevations and floor plan of the proposed dwelling. Next slide, please. This is an aerial photograph that shows the site. You can see the buildings in the top right corner, and then down the bottom is where the dwelling is proposed, and you can see the access off the highway as well. And next slide, please. And this is some street view images looking onto the access. You can see the signpost there, and to the right of that is the existing access, which is proposed access into the site. And the next slide, please. Clears a view of the access and onto the site, where you can see the traffic sign saying no through road. Behind that hedge there is where the dwelling is proposed. And the next slide, please. And this is a view from the scatulator of the land onto the site, and it gives a longer distance view. Some context, you can see the buildings on the left-hand side, and then down the bottom where there's the row of trees, you can see, yeah, that's right where the arrow is. That's the site there. Yeah, we visited that point in our site visit today. Next slide, please. Okay, this side is shows Pulverbatch, which is the closest recognised settlement, and you can see the site down the bottom corner. That's right where we're indicated now. The key consideration is whether the proposal complies with CS11, namely adjoining or adjacent to a settlement. Now, what constitutes settlement? The type of affordability of housing SPD adds definition to what constitutes adjoining a settlement, and is often a matter of judgment on each case, especially if the settlement is small dispersed. For example, a site a short distance from a loosely packed settlement may be justified as adjoining, while a similar distance for a tightly packed development would not be considered adjoining and would be in the open countryside. The sphere of influence generally means where a larger settlement influences the surrounding area. And this, in the planning department's view, isn't relevant to Pulverbatch. It's too small to have a pull to the hinterland. Pulverbatch meets the definition for recognised named settlement as set out within the SPD. There is a clear concentration of dwellings along the Sea Road, which extends from the fork in the north where the mound is, and then along following that road to another fork in the road to the south, and you can see that on the screen there. The dwellings have a close relationship to one another, and the limits of the settlement are clear. Collectively, the planning authority do not consider the dwelling to be within or adjacent to Pulverbatch, and is therefore within the open countryside. The site is within the national landscape, and the management plan for the landscape puts weight on conserving the landscape and its scenic beauty. ND12 goes further by seeking the avoidance of harm to Shropshire's natural assets and their conservation, enhancement and restoration. The recommendation is one of refusal, and it's set out in full in the committee report. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, your Councillor Bill Higgins, please. And you're the Pulverbatch Parish Council. 3 minutes to the committee. Thank you.
I chair the Pulverbatch Parish Council. This has come before us, I believe, on 5 separate occasions. On every occasion, Pulverbatch Parish Council has supported Mr. Hill's application. We have not received any complaints by members of the public, publicly or privately. Everyone knows that they qualify. I can tell you that I have lived there for 59 years, and the field, we found that field adjacent to the site, so we don't have a problem. Jamie qualifies, he's long resident. I have known 3 generations of the family in that time. Jamie's been to school locally. He's a well-respected member, but he's got his business there, working hard. And the other thing is, it's great to see young people in the locality as well. There are enough of my generation about as well. So I strongly hope that you can support this. We have no problem at all with the siting of the property. We hope that you can see the planning committee can see the way forward to supporting it. We support it 100%. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Higgins, please? No, thank you very much, sir. I call on Dan Morris, the local member, please. You have 5 minutes to address the committee. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. The local connections of Jamie are not in doubt. He's a single dad with 3 young sons. His children go to school locally. He's lived in the parish for years and years, his family for decades. He works for many local farms and rural businesses with his contracting business. During the winter, when we're all asleep, Jamie gets up and he clears the roads for Pulverbatch and the surrounding villages. He is local to his core, and there isn't anyone more deserving and more appropriate for this particular application than Jamie, in my opinion. The proposed site is located on a road that already contains sporadic development, which means it is part of an established pattern of housing and it's not an isolated outpost in the countryside. The proposed site relates well to existing built development and is within a walking distance or a short journey of Pulverbatch core amenities. The applicant has demonstrated ties to the community. The proposal contributes to the council's aim of supporting local services. The council, Shropshire Council, has previously approved exception sites in comparable rural locations where they have been deemed appropriately related to the settlement. Refusing this application solely on the grounds of its location, while similar cases have been granted, could be seen to be inconsistent with past decisions. When it comes to planning, it's all about the planning balance. I don't need to tell the committee that. But when you weigh up everything and all the things in the favour of this application, I strongly hope and would hope that the committee sees fit to approve Jamie's planning application so he can live where he's lived for decades. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions, please? No, thank you, Dan. We call on the agent, Amy Henson, please. You have 3 minutes to address the committee. Thank you, Amy.
Okay, right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of Jamie. As you are aware, Jamie has applied several times now to build his own home on land that he owns near his business in Pulverbatch under the council's single plot exception site policy. He has been confirmed as being eligible by the Housing Enabling Team. He runs his groundworks business from the site. He is a single parent to 3 young boys under the age of 8. He provides care and support, in addition to this, to his disabled father. His father, John, needs help caring for himself as he struggles with only one arm and increasing mobility issues. During the winter months, Jamie is subcontracted by the council to clear the roads from snow and ice and grip them. This type of work is often required during unsociable hours in the middle of the night and at weekends, often at short notice. It is crucial that he needs to be close to his place of work. The business operates from 2 buildings on the site, utilises the existing access, which would also serve this dwelling. Security is an issue for Jamie. Whilst there's CCTV on the site, he struggles to get there fast enough to prevent thefts. Hopefully at your site visit today, you viewed the site from close range and from further away to appreciate in your own minds the visual impact of the dwelling upon the landscape. Photos provided within the application show limited views of the site from the vantage point known locally as the Knack. It would be positioned neatly against the hedge at the back of the entrance gateway. The dwelling would be single-storey, simple in its design and form. It would be rendered with local stone used on the front elevation. In our opinion, it would be in keeping with the character and appearance of other properties in the rural area. Pulverbatch comprises 3 distinct types of character. Dwellings clustered around the church Pulverbatch, dwellings arranged around the road near the Knapp, Castle Pulverbatch, and thirdly, the loose-knit character of Pulverbatch, where this site and several other houses are located. On the junction to the lane serving the plot, so 90 metres away, is a wooden sign pointing this way that reads Pulverbatch. We assume this sign was erected by the council. It is on highways land, and weight should be given to the fact that the site is within the settlement of Pulverbatch. According to Royal Mail records, there are several properties located beyond this site with the same postcode that have Castle Pulverbatch within their address. This application has received support from local residents and the parish council, all who consider the site to be within the settlement of Pulverbatch, and that Jamie needs to be close to his place of work, a vital business serving the community. The application initially met with officer support. Unfortunately, however, this changed late in the determination and a recommendation to refuse then followed. Confirmation of officer support was provided to you on the update sheet. Given the support of officers initially and the details you have seen and heard before you today, we very much hope you can support the planning application for Jamie and his family. This is a genuine case for an eligible local person to remain living close to his place of work.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Any questions for Amy, please?
Sorry, I didn't look that.
Okay, no questions. Councillor Potter, please.
Thank you very much. I know Pulverbatch particularly well. I also know from the vantage point of the NAP, and I don't think there'll be a adverse impact on the local setting. We've been through the single plot exception sites a number of times at this committee, and I've had my own battles in the north with similar plots where it's dissimilar to an application where we were granted on appeal 2 dwellings at Winnington near Halfway House in a very similar settlement of quite a dispersed nature. The Pulverbatch has a, as you can see on the picture, a core, but it also extends out to Castle Pulverbatch. It extends down to where Councillor Dan Morris calls home. It is a wide, loose-knit settlement along established lines. And the thing that sways it for me is that there are existing buildings on this plot and on this site. This isn't going to have an adverse impact. It has local support. It's providing homes that we need to provide in our county. And we talk about the right home in the right place. How many times have we seen a number of homes built that don't meet the needs of local people in the wrong places sometimes? But this is going to provide exactly the opposite. It provides the right home for a family in the right place that is important for them in order to work and support the local community. And it 100% has my support on that view.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ignat, please.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with what's just been said. A couple of things to mention. It was really useful. I thank the planning officer for taking us to that site of the elevated Mott and Double Bailey on the hillside opposite, because that did give the members a chance to look at what sort of impact we felt that might have from a particularly important site up above Pulverbatch. So it was useful to look at that. But also we need to bear in mind, I think, that it's a single-storey dwelling, and with an appropriate planting scheme, I agree that it's in an area of some importance. But I do think that with a proper planting scheme, it could be less obtrusive, for instance, than the industrial building that's already there, which houses this applicant's machinery and things that he needs for work. So I understand that. Also on 7.1, it states that it's not within the sphere of influence of Pulverbatch. And yet, as the previous speaker said, and I was on the minibus this morning, once we'd driven out of that settlement, it took us about 60 seconds to get to the site on the minibus. I didn't time it exactly because I hadn't got my watch on. To me, somewhere that's only 60 seconds away from a settlement is near enough to be under the sphere of that. Admittedly, it hasn't got many facilities there. It's just really got a pub, which I understand is doing really well and on the up at the moment. So for those reasons, and because I think it is near enough to Pulverbatch to be within the sphere of that, I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Towers, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, yes, I agree with both my colleagues who've just spoken, actually. A couple of additional points that, because in the north we have had very similar sites to consider, because I said I was sitting on that committee at one point, saw quite a few. Just a point I want to add on rural crime. We are concerned with that in our part of the world, and local people trying to make their living by doing work in the community of agricultural nature or wherever else. This gentleman is doing the same. I don't obviously know him, but I would say living on site has got to help. And I would say that it actually must improve the look of the site, to be honest. Those buildings that are there are probably more disfigurement than a small house. So I'd say on the basis that it's helping the local economy, which is something I'm also concerned about in our part of the world. This helps Church Pulverbatch and the Pulverbatch area. So those two reasons I would give, and I'd like to support it.
Councillor Parsons, please.
Yeah, I'd also like to support this. I mean, I think that the fact that the site is already partially developed, that putting a house into the area where we know that it's going to go, it will not have any significant impact on the environment. It's also very close to a row of white housing just on that junction there, on the where we can see the junction there. There's a row of housing there, and I think it's close enough to that and will not cause any significant damage to the area. So I will be supporting it.
Thank you. Bagnall, do you want to speak?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was just going to add that I think it's really important that we do what we can to keep our young people in our rural communities. Without them, then, just fester and die, I think. And so I think it's really important that we do what we can, given that obviously we need to be mindful of maintaining the character of those communities. Having been on the site visit this morning, it was interesting to say, I don't think it would have been as easy to get the impression of how it will sit in the landscape without having actually been there. And it will be quite hidden, I feel. Don't think it's going to have a great impact on the surrounding countryside. So I am minded to support this application.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Lambie.
I was a little confused by the officer's report because there's a map there that's at the top, and on it says Pulverbatch. And actually, when you look at where that is on that slide, the junction that Councillor Parsons was about, the house, is actually shown as being under that. So you've got all them houses all the way up there, but it says Pulverbatch, according to the Board of Observing map, is right next to where this house is going. So, yes, I don't know anything more than that, but to me, it seems to be in the settlement.
Thank you. You want to come back down here?
No.
Right, someone wants to make a proposal, please? Ben Potter, seconded by Councillor Towers. That we go against officer's recommendation and grant the application.
Reject the application.
Reject the application.
Sorry.
No.
Not.
Approve.
Approve the
Approve the application.
Yes, that's right.
You want to come back?
It's against the officer.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if we're going to go forward with a recommendation overturning, obviously we would need to have some delegated powers to draft some suitable conditions and agree a section 106 agreement, if that's okay with officer.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine by me.
Yeah. Okay. Right, let's take the vote, please.
Yeah, we consider it to be part of the loose knit settlement of Pulverbatch and within its sphere, particularly with the extent that Pulverbatch extends to the, I don't know whether you say north or south or west or east of the core settlement. It's very much part of the wider Pulverbatch settlement.
Okay.
So if you can indicate whether you're voting for or against the recommendation to the proposal to approve the application.
I'm going to check. The officer said against,
Yes, this-
we're saying approve. So which way are I voting, for or against?
This is for approving the proposal for approving the application.
Yes, yeah, fine.
It's for.
So it's for the application. Caroline Bagnall? For. Andy Waddington?
For.
Nick Hignett?
For.
Christian Lee?
For.
Nigel Lumley? For. Tony Parsons?
For.
Ed Potter?
For.
Colin Turner?
For.
Ben Towers?
For.
And Dave Evans?
For.
Okay, that's unanimous.
That's unanimous because the application is passed. Thank you. Now we're going to item number 8, which is schedule of appeals. Just for noting rather than comment, if there's anybody got a comment, we can make. That's right. Now we're the date of the next meeting. It's Tuesday, the 29th of April. Tuesday, the 29th of April. I'd like to thank everybody for attending today. I thank those who went on the site visits, which put a lot of input into the application today. Thank our officers for all the hard work they do. I wish you all a safe journey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.